Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ade and I'm your bookworm, and today we are going back into book reviews. We are back into a world we have explored before, and I'm talking about Discworld because we are reviewing Eric by Terry Pratchett. What is Eric? What is the Discworld? Well, let's start with the Discworld. That is the universe that Terry Pratchett has created with multiple series in it. Think of it like Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson or Marvel Cinematic Universe by Marvel, where you have different stories all happening within the same universe, in this case within the same Discworld, and there's overlap of some characters, some events across all the series. In regards to the Discworld, I have read so far 9 books, and you can check the reviews here on the channel, some of them through the thumbnails, the cards up above. You can figuring out how many different series I have started. I don't think I have finished any, but I've started several ones there. They have varied scores, but you can check out which ones are best or not. But Eric is actually the 9th book by chronological order, because this will make it the 10th book I've read, but one of them I read was out of chronological order, doesn't really matter. Anyways, and this belongs to the Rincewind series, which was a surprise because when I started reading this book, I actually didn't realize this was part of the series. I thought it was a standalone. So when Rincewind showed up, I was very, very happy, but that's part of the review. I'll talk about it soon. This particular book was published in 1990. That makes it 36 years old, which is crazy to think about. And it is fantasy, as you suspected, since it was written by Terry Pratchett. It's very satirical, very witty, very comedic fantasy. And some people might even say that is absurdist fantasy. If you like that term, you can use it. I use it quite often because I think it does fit it quite well. Think of it as Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but in fantasy setting. On Goodreads, this book has just over 82,000 ratings and an average score of 3.79 out of 5. Now, we know that this is not the best score to have in fantasy because on Goodreads, usually fantasy books have between 4 to 4.3 out of 5, and anything below 4 tends to not be good. Anything above a 4.3 tends to be really, really good. Will this book fulfill that prophecy or not? Did I give a similar score? Let's figure it out. But of course, first we have our housekeeping items. The first one being the synopsis. I'm going to narrate the synopsis for you, just so you get a sense of what this book is about. Usually, Terry Pratchett's synopsises are very short, so it won't take long. But anyways, if you want to skip that, skip all the housekeeping items and jump right into the review, just click on the next timestamp. You'll get right onto it. Otherwise, you can stick around and hear me narrate it. Eric is the Discworld's only demonology hacker. The trouble is, he's not very good at it. All he wants is the usual 3 wishes: to be immortal, rule the world, and have the most beautiful woman fall madly in love with him. The usual stuff. But what he gets is Rincewind, the Disc's most incompetent wizard, and Rincewind's luggage, the world's most dangerous travel accessory, into the bargain. Terry Pratchett's hilarious take on the Foss legend stars many of the Discworld's most popular characters in an outrageous adventure that will leave Eric wishing once more, this time quite fervently, that he'd never been born. Alright, like I said, very short. It's also very funny. Just the synopsis, I really love how Terry Pratchett writes them because I think they give immediately a sense of what you're gonna face, what's waiting for you. But anyways, now let's just go through the scores I gave to the previous books in the Rincewind sub-series, but take into account that each one of these books is quite standalone from each other. They don't really follow a sequel progression type. I mean, the first 2, yes, which are The Color of Magic and Light Fantastic. Those 2 are pretty much a sequel of one another, and they kind of go hand in hand. But Sorcery, which is the 3rd one, is very standalone, and this one, Eric, is also very standalone. So even though the scores were 3.8, 4.4, and 4.2, just take that into account. Each book has its own strengths. I think The Light Fantastic was probably the best one, but that's also because The Color of Magic, I didn't really understand the purpose of it at the start. I didn't realize that it was poking a lot of fun or just the tropes of fantasy, bringing them up to light. And now that I understand, I can admit that the score might be a bit too low. But anyways, Light Fantastic was great, and The Color of Magic was also a fun book. Maybe not the best one of Terry Pratchett, but still quite good. And with Sorcery, a lot of the categories were 4s, and they were stable 4s, not like low or high 4s. So I think it was just a very stable book, one of those staples that you read, you're happy with. It's not gonna make your life whoa, you're not gonna be recommending it all the time to friends, but it's also not a bad book. Now, one of the things that I like about this series is Rincewind, which I've come to appreciate him more and more as the series progresses. And so I was very happy when this one showed up, which is the 4th one. And I'm going to get into the review right away instead of just starting to speak about it like this. So let's jump into our categories. All right, starting with plot, which is our first category, I need to preface one thing, which is this book is very short. This edition has 129 pages or something like that, so it's very short, even in the Discworld terms, because the books of the Discworld, which are these ones here, they all tend to be quite short. But this one was especially short. I almost thought it was a short story instead of an actual novel. But why am I saying this? Well, that means that Terry Pratchett doesn't really have a lot of space to create a complex plot. It needs to be quite simple because the reader won't have much time to keep up with what's happening. And I think he was able to achieve that. It is a simple plot, but it still has some plot twists. It still has some twists and turns you're not expecting in true Terry Pratchett fashion. And be it with characters, the writing style, the plot itself, or even the world, those twists all make sense and they are coherent because Terry Pratchett, by this point, he has become a master at writing this genre of fantasy. I mean, the plot starts very simply. It has a good premise. We have a demonologist trying to invoke a demon to get wishes, and instead of a demon, he gets Rincewind, the incompetent wizard. And from this point onwards, you're already knowing that it's not going to go along the way we or Eric expected, and things are going to take a turn. And they do for the best. We get to explore a lot. We travel through time and space, and there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of mishaps, but it's always a fun journey to accompany. And I think what matters is this plot, even though it was short, even though it was simple, it was still fun and funny. And the twists that were happening, they were still sometimes unexpected. They would really show up in a way that I wasn't ready for them, but I still enjoy them. And this is amazing because Terry Pratchett does not have a lot of lead up time to create the expectations when reading this book, because again, it's a short book. So the fact that it was able to surprise me, it's good because it means that I was still enjoying and being surprised without my sense of belief being disrupted. So for this category, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. All right, let's talk about characters now. And okay, our main characters are Eric and Rincewind, which I think made a very funny pairing because we have Eric, who's this young character that thinks they know what they want, and you kind of figure out quite early that they actually don't know really well what they want. And then you have Rincewind, who's this not so good wizard who has been disappeared for quite a while, and suddenly he returns and he doesn't know exactly what is happening, but you also know that he might try to help, but his help will probably not be the help that people are asking for. And so you put these two together, and in the end, they actually end up being good for each other because Eric goes through some development. He becomes more mature. He understands now what he should want or not. And at the same time, Rincewind kind of becomes wiser, even though all the things that he went through, he was already wise, but his wisdom is a bit makeshift, let's say. So a bit of DIY wisdom, if that makes any sense. But I think they made a really good pairing and they had some great development throughout. And then we also have great side characters like the Parrot, the Demon King. We see characters from other series like Death and the Librarian. And all of these are so well characterized that you can immediately identify with them. You can laugh with what they're doing, especially with all the bureaucracy of Hell and how Hell ends up having its own development throughout, which is also part of world building. I really enjoyed that part, and I think it was well done. But then again, Terry Pratchett is just brilliant with characters. Every character is so distinct from each other, and they're so witty, so funny at the same time. And yeah, it's just that whenever you see a character that you already recognize from previous books, you feel this warm, this nostalgic feeling, and you know that you're safe for the ride. Even if the other new characters, you're not used to them yet, you know it'll be fine. So I think for this category, it's impossible not to give a 5 out of 5, especially with Rincewind, who I really love. It's one of my favorite Discworld characters. I have enjoyed him throughout. It's funny because at the start, I didn't care that much for him, but from the second book onwards, I started really loving him. He's really good. All right, what about world building? By this point, we have explored quite a lot of the Discworld. However, Terry Pratchett was smart in the sense that he created a whole new part of the Discworld we didn't know about, which is demons and their hell, even though it is quite similar to what we know from our world and some of the religions in our planet. It was able to draw a lot of inspiration from that, bring it to the Discworld, and create something new. And at the same time, while we explore this hell demon world, we also have Rincewind and Eric traveling through time and space to basically explore, have this adventure ongoing with Eric and his wishes. And I think that allows us to have two different plot lines, kinda, but also two different explorations of the world that gives us different feelings. One is more just an adventure, whereas the other one is kind of building the world and make it more deep and complex. And these two parts might seem quite distant from each other, but Terry Pratchett is able to weave them together and make sure that they link and they are coherent both with the story and with the rest of the Discworld. So I really enjoyed that. I felt that it was very fresh. It was new in the sense that we didn't explore certain parts of this world. So I'm going to give this category a 5 out of 5. All right, and what about writing style? Writing style is a funny one because actually I didn't speak about Terry Pratchett in my previous video talking about writing style. However, I think Terry Pratchett has one of the best and most unique writing styles that I've encountered. I haven't seen any other author writing like him, but I think he writes it in a beautiful way where it's descriptive, it's very funny, very witty at the same time, and it can give you some lessons while you're reading it. It's really, really good. And it's amazing because at times you know that something funny is about to happen. There is some lead up to it, and even when it happens in a surprising way because he twists words, he creates unexpected words for you to encounter that you wouldn't encounter in that situation. Or for example, characters are trying to say something figuratively, but then it happens actually literally and vice versa. So there's always this twist that you're not expecting that ends up creating this new expectation in your head and makes you want to read more and want to keep reading while laughing, of course. And the pacing of this book was also really good. It was actually one of those cases where the pacing doesn't have those levels. I think it's a pacing that is always going at a constant pace, maybe building up a tiny bit until the end where it's actually quite a small boom, a small explosion. Because again, this book is quite short, so there's not much happening. But I think it was still quite fun and the pacing was good because short book, you don't have to build those levels. You can just have one progression to it. And I think he kind of achieved that. It was perfect. And regarding themes, even though this book didn't really have big themes attached to it, I didn't learn anything new, it didn't make me think in a different way, I still think it was enjoyable nonetheless. I think the writing style in this book wasn't trying to do that, and so I can't really blame it for not having big themes to think about, because again, the prose and the pacing were done perfectly. So I think for this category, I'm also going to give a 5 out of 5. And finally, our last category is enjoyment. And I know by now, if you've watched so far, you will probably guess what my score is, because I truly enjoyed this book. I thought it was really funny. I think every category really brought up the best of this world and of Terry Pratchett. It might not have been the most whoa in the sense of mind-blowing with the themes, for example, but I thought it was a really fun adventure and it was a wild ride that I enjoyed. And my enjoyment was always high because of it. And because it was so short, I was expecting also that to be a short story type of setting. And a lot of the times with short stories, for me, they either punch me really hard and I get really excited for it and I go for a 5 very, very early, or they kind of fizzle and they're never able to reach that 5. They stand on like a 4.6, 4.8. But this one, I think it was able to do that because at the start, I didn't know very much what to expect. Then Rincewind shows up and get excited. And then the story just keeps going in a fun way, in a fun adventure. And I was able to always enjoy and reach the end satisfied from the adventure that I went through. So I think this story, because it was short and sweet, if you get the reference, Sabrina Carpenter there, I thought it was really well done. And I was able to keep my enjoyment high without having those lull moments because again, the pacing was really good. So I'm going to give this category a 5 out of 5 as well. And that leads us to the end of our review. Just as a refresher, we have 5 for plot, 5 for characters, world building, writing style, and enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 5 out of 5. So this is, I think, the second Discworld book that I gave a 5 out of 5. And I think it couldn't be any more different from the Goodreads score, which was 3.79. And I don't really understand why people give it such a low score, because I think this book was really fun and like it had everything that Terry Pratchett brings. So I really enjoyed it. I think the fact that it was also quite short was good. It was easy to read and it really made me want to read more Terry Pratchett, which I want to do more this year because I mean, it's March already, and this was only the first Terry Pratchett book I've read this year, so I'm gonna try and read a couple more. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this book if you've read other Terry Pratchett books. This one was quite fun, but again, you might want to read the other 3 first, because I think one of the best things of this book is Rincewind. And for me to have this connection with Rincewind, I had to read the previous 3 books, because I think that's what creates that connection. And so you might not want to read the other 3 books before reading this one, but then you might suffer a bit from it. There's that balance there that I will let you decide. But anyways, I want to know what you think. Did you enjoy this book as much as I did, or do you think it should be on the 3.8 out of 5 that Goodreads has given it? Comment down below, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, like the content, and I shall be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays. See you soon.